Yes, you can formally specify the sum total of our mathematical knowledge, since specification does not require conceptualization in order to be formal. The mathematics is both complete and consistent, except within naturalism. Then, within naturalism, there's also this so-called quantum entanglement problem. Little did you know, but naturalism is here to inform you that particles are entangled in such a way that the state of each particle cannot be described independently of the others. Just like the Greeks told us that subject is entangled within the object, as if they were referring to either subject or object. This is what's described by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The particles are in superposition of non-locality, insofar as there could be such thing, that is, either particles are entangled or the naturalist has not drawn the lines between reality and awareness correctly. And how could it be otherwise for self-referentialists to do? The last man who could speak on the matter speaks the loudest, claiming that the outcome of one measurement influences the observed properties of other particles. Wrong. Those are not other particles just because you, the self-awareness, are aware of them or can postulate them. We are told that when particles are not observed, they are waves. So what are they really? What are photons, waves, or particles in reality? The answer is, there are no other particles or waves because you are not observing any particles. Thinking is not observing. There is no particle inequality. So to reiterate, the particles are not entangled. The reason the two particles are not entangled is because you are not referring to any two particles to begin with. And the reason you are not referring to two particles is because you, as a naturalist, cannot be referring to anything, let alone particles, or even to one particle. You are referring not to reality, not to particles, but to ideology, to the attempted ideas or concepts of particles. The reason naturalist is making this constant blunder is because to him reference is law or principle, and because of that he is unable to see that even his entangled particles do not have the same ontological status, and even within his own system, one of those ideas of particles is supposed to have the status of reality and the other of knowledge. The naturalist standard practice is to sweep under the rug the difference in status between his particles. Einstein argued in a similar naturalist way, namely, that space is entangled with time. It just could not be that one is above the other, time above space, or the particle of purpose over particle of no purpose. For time to be about or over space must be some kind of supremacy. So let us try to equate time and space in order to eliminate supremacy, as if equating reality with ideology could produce reference to time and space, rather than self-reference of idea of time with the idea of space. Einstein is not talking about space or time. What else had naturalism told us that was very scientific? Naturalism also told us that parallel lines are not parallel but actually meet. That is, they meet if and only if it is legitimate to include into reality the model of spherical space. However, that is legitimate only within naturalism itself. What if it is not legitimate to do so outside of the ideology of naturalism, where parallel lines never meet? The ideology of naturalism has no cutoff point delineating reality from awareness. From whose point of view do parallel lines meet? The naturalist can only answer from the point of view of theory. But why should we privilege the point of view of theory, which by definition is not a point of view, but its exact opposite, namely the point of concept, point of idea, and point of ideology? In other words, why should we privilege ideology over reality? Why should we privilege theory as reference, or law as the way? Is there not something illogical for naturalism to define parallel as perpendicular? And why the obsession with reductionism? That is because the ideology of naturalism is unable to recognize distinctions as reality and itself as ideology. The objective of naturalism was to create a meta-narrative that excludes God and functions as knowledge or substitutes soul or a being and reference to reality. This, naturalism told us, was to commence by reducing everything non-physical to physical with the hope that it can be shown that everything that exists, everything that can be measured is physical, then a claim can be established that God is not real, and hence language about God outside of naturalism is not about reality. However, that argument only works if it is true that naturalism itself is a language and not just noise, self-delusion, self-deception, and self-reference. What is not a language? The answer, something which refers to itself. And what are the outcomes of naturalist thinking? Is it success or failure? Naturalism is notoriously known for lowering its own ambitions after never-ending failures, and hence the epistemological abyss is spiraling down. In the last 100 years of the anti-realist movement, it became fashionable for naturalism to concede that natural science is not so much knowledge about nature or language referring to reality in itself, since according to naturalism, there is no such thing as object independent of subject or inequality independent of equality, known within naturalism as reality in itself. Consequently, the anti-realists started to claim that natural science is just text, as opposed to language about reality in itself. That is text from the vantage point of naturalism and within naturalism. If natural science is just text, then by implication, so is naturalism, just text. Yet, and still what is precisely in question, is whether text minus author, who is necessary, and objective is in fact text, and not just noise and ink. Naturalism will respond with, there is no such author, to which we reply with, says who? An ideology? Or is naturalism even an ideology if it is incomplete? In which case it is then privilege of ideology in place of truth and reality. Privilege which we normally call ill will, also known as pride. Anything of ideology and within ideology is not reality, but privation in reality, a gap and abyss in soul, misreference. So naturalism in the same way is not even speaking about materialism or physicalism, and as such it cannot even begin to postulate that all that exists is physical, as that is only physical to naturalism and within naturalism, that is to say, within non-language. Likewise, you will not be able to hide behind the cause and effect descriptions of natural science, which the pragmatists try to do even after they already denounced cause-effect relations as psychological rather than logical, which they are, outside of the ideology of naturalism, logical. So naturalism is presenting us with more and more evidence that it is not a language, that it is not about reality, that it is not aboutness. So any denunciations of God which naturalism had ever undertaken are inadmissible because they are authored by ideology, the ideology of naturalism, and as such, they are not referring to God, but to the attempted idea or concept of God. To deny concepts is not to deny reality. In reality, outside of the black hole of naturalism, space is not equal to time. Parallel lines do not meet, nor quantum particles are entangled, since you, the naturalists, are measuring not particles, but your own hypothetical concepts originated by prior incomplete concepts, which you later submit as instances of reality from which you speak. Defenders of natural science would like to claim that natural science can vouch for its validity as certain knowledge with the evidence of technological advancements through history. However, those technological advances are not due to natural science, but precisely to that which natural science seeks to eliminate, namely perspective, personal preference, or privilege. The technological benefits are a product not of natural science, which is to say, not of law or principle or method of selecting particular theories and descriptions over others, not by method or science, but by person, personal, uncategorizable perspective and purpose at a given moment. That is to say, by inequality, not by equality so-called. The naturalist keeps asking, does a falling tree make a sound if there is nobody in the forest to hear it? And the naturalist answers, no, such tree does not make a sound since the hearing subject is mixed or entangled with the object, the falling tree. Therefore, there cannot be such a thing as object independent of the subject. So within naturalism, falling trees make no sound. Within reality, however, they do. How do we know? because that is the truth, and truth does not require being under concept or law in order to be the truth. In fact, if it was, it would not be the truth. That is precisely what is so sacrilegious about naturalism. It is war on truth, under the banner of the quest for truth. The pursuit of hypothetical category or concept for that independence is not required in order for that independence to be objective, necessary, and absolutely real. From within the epistemological black hole of naturalism, however, this is hard to see. And when naturalism then fails to find its concepts for reality, it rejects reality as unreality. The answer is there is no the same thing when authored by naturalists, as that is only the same thing postulated by naturalism. Outside of the ideology, however, we recognize that the so-called the same thing of the changing object is not an existing object, but a temporary posit submitted by the ideology of naturalism in order to appear as if naturalism is referring to real things, which are then claimed to be somehow opposite or unequal of each other. These waters are unequal only from the vantage point of some one hypothetical equal water, whatever that is. So since the vantage point from which waters are unequal does not exist in reality, therefore the naturalist assertion that naturalism is referring to reality is undermined. These waters or rivers in reality are not unequal or changing, since naturalism has not begun referring to either rivers or waters, but rather to definitions and concepts. Attempted. Word minus author equals gap, called meaning or definition. To point out that the definition of river is not equal to the definition of another river is not yet to point out inequality of actual rivers or waters. Definitions are not reality if authored by ideology. Rivers do not change at all. There is no such thing as changing rivers or unmarried bachelors or lying liars or three-sided triangles. Those are tautologies, not objects or references to actual objects in reality. Bachelors, triangles, or rivers. If a side of a triangle is a property, and the triangle could metaphorically be considered as a person, then you can observe naturalist logic of equating person to property of that person, so as to make person and property on the same equal level. Such equation results in generation of concept of triangle to replace triangle. That is how ideology encroaches on reality and your soul, equating words instead of accepting them. River change is real? I think not.